Have you ever tried to explain something but the other person just didn't listen? If that happens to you, this video is for you. Hi, I am Megha, and on this channel we talk about communication, self-improvement and personal growth. In this video, you will learn 12 principles from how to win friends and influence people that can help you communicate better, avoid unnecessary arguments, and build stronger relationships. So let's start it with a story. Rahul and Aman were preparing a science project for school. The submission was the next day, and both of them wanted a good grade. After school, Aman showed Rahul the presentation he had spent the entire weekend making. Rahul looked at the slides for a few seconds and he said, "I don't think this is going to impress the teacher." Aman immediately frowned. "What do you mean?" "I've been working on it for 2 days." Rahul pointed at the screen. "I just think it's too basic." Now Aman was annoyed. If it's so basic, why didn't you help earlier? Within a few minutes, both of them were arguing. At this point, neither of them was thinking about the project anymore. They were trying to prove who was right. And that's where the first principle comes in. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Rahul realized that arguing isn't helping, so he stopped trying to win. Instead, he said, "Maybe I'm looking at in the wrong way. Can you explain why you choose this approach?" Aman's tone changed immediately. He started explaining his ideas instead of defending them. This brings us to the second principle. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you are wrong. As Aman explained, Rahul noticed something. The research section was actually much stronger than what he had planned. So he said, "You know what? That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that." Most people hate admitting they are wrong, but Rahul did. And instead of losing respect, he earned it. And that's the third principle. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Now the argument was gone. The atmosphere felt completely different. Rahul smiled and said, "You've clearly worked hard on this. Let's see how can we make it even better together." Aman smiled back. For the first time that evening, they were acting like teammates again. And that brings us to the fourth principle. Begin in a friendly way. The first four principle helps us avoid conflict and create a better conversation. But what if the conversation is already going well? And you want someone to genuinely accept your idea? And that's where the next four principles come in. Let me tell you another story. A few months ago, Meera was helping organize her school's annual event. Every year, the event looked almost the same. The same competitions, the same activities, and the same schedule. And honestly, many students had started losing interest. Meera wanted to change that. She had an idea for a student challenge showcase. A place where students can sing, dance, perform magic tricks, recite poetry, or show any talent they had. She was excited, but there was a problem. The event coordinator is known for being very careful for unknown ideas, so Meera was nervous. For days, she kept thinking about how to convince them. Finally, she gathered the courage and went to meet him after school. At first, she wanted to walk in and say, "Sir, I have a great idea." But she stopped herself. Instead, she sat down and started talking about the event. "Sir, this year's event is important, isn't it?" "Of course," he replied. "We want students to enjoy it more than last year." "Definitely." The conversation continued. Soon the coordinator started talking about the challenges. Many students lacked confidence. Some never participated in anything. Others felt that school events only focus on a small group of students. Meera listened carefully. The more he spoke, the more she understood what really mattered to him. After a while, she asked, "If more students could show their abilities, do you think the participation would increase?" The coordinator thought for a moment. Then he nodded. "Yes, I think it would." A few minutes later, he suddenly said, "You know, I think we should create something where students can showcase their talent." Because that was exactly the idea she had wanted him to suggest from the beginning. But now, this wasn't just her idea. This was something they both believed in. A few weeks later, Talent Showcase became one of the most popular parts of the event. Students who had never stepped onto a stage before participated. Parents loved it. Teachers praised it. And the coordinator was proud because the event became more inclusive and exciting. All because one conversation was handled the right way. Now, if we look closely at this story, we can find 4 powerful principles hidden inside it. Let's break them one by one. Principle number 5. Get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. At the beginning of the conversation, Meera didn't start it by presenting her idea. Instead, she started with the questions the coordinator already agreed with. Isn't this year's event important? By getting him to say yes from the start, she created a positive and cooperative conversation. Principle number 6. Let the other person do a great deal of talking. Notice that Meera spent more time on listening than speaking. She allowed the coordinators to share his concerns, thoughts, and experiences. Most people try to persuade by talking more, but often listening is more powerful than speaking. Principle number 7. Let the other person feel that the idea is there. Meera never forced her idea onto him, but instead she asked thoughtful questions that guided the conversation. Eventually, the coordinator himself suggested the talent showcase. If people feel ownership of an idea, they are much more likely to support it. Principle number 8. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Before trying to convince the coordinator, Meera tried to understand him. She realized that he wasn't against new ideas. The moment she understood his perspective, the conversation became much more effective. And that's the power of these 4 principles. They help us influence people not by forcing our ideas, but by understanding them first. The first 2 stories taught us how to deal with disagreements and how to influence people effectively. But what if somebody already agrees with you, yet still isn't giving their best? That's where our next story begins. The final were only 2 weeks away. For months, Arav and his team worked hard for this moment. This was their chance to win the school's basketball championship. Everyone was excited, but there was a problem. Vikram, the team's best player, had stopped giving their best during the practice. He arrived late, he seems distracted, and sometimes it seems as he didn't even want to be there. At first, Arav felt frustrated. How could the best player of the team lose focus when the biggest match of the year was so close? But instead of criticizing him in front of everyone, Arav decided to talk to him after practice. That evening, the court was almost empty. The sun was beginning to set. Arav sat beside Vikram on the bench and asked, "What's been going on lately?" For a moment, Vikram stayed silent. Then he finally spoke. He talked about the pressure of exams, the expectations from his family, and how exhausted he felt trying to balance everything at once. Arav listened carefully. He didn't interrupt it. He didn't judge. He simply listened. When Vikram finished, Arav said, "I understand. Anyone in your position would feel overwhelmed." Vikram looked at him surprised. He had expected criticism. Instead, he found understanding. After a brief pause, Arav continued, "But there's something I think you don't realize." "What?" Vikram asked. Arav smiled. "When younger students come to watch our matches, they don't talk about me. They talk about you. They copy your moves. They want to play like you." For the first time that evening, Vikram sat quietly. He had never thought about it this way. The next day, Arav brought a photograph from the last year's final. It showed the team moments after losing the championship just by 1 point. He handed the photo to Vikram. "Remember this day?" Vikram nodded. How can he forget? The disappointment, the silence, the feeling of being so close. Arav pointed to the picture and said, "We've been given another chance." Suddenly, the goal felt real again. The championship wasn't just a trophy. It was an opportunity to finish what they had started. As they got up to leave, Arav smiled and said, "By the way, let's see who reaches practice first by tomorrow morning." Vikram laughed. "You're on." The challenge seemed small, but it changed something. The next morning, Vikram was already on the court when Arav arrived. And from that day, his energy returned. His focus returned. And 2 weeks later, when the final whistle blew, Arav and Vikram stood side by side as champions. Not because Arav forced him to work harder, but because he understood him, reminded him of his responsibility, made the goal feel real, and gave him a challenge worth accepting. If we look closely at Arav's action throughout this story, we can discover 4 powerful principles. These principles don't just help us communicate better, they help us become better leaders. Because leadership isn't about giving orders, it's about understanding people, inspiring them, and helping them become the best version of themselves. Let's look at these 4 principles one by one. Principle number 9, be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. When Arav noticed that Vikram's performance was declining, he didn't immediately criticize him. Instead, he tried to understand what Vikram was going through. He listened to his struggles, his pressure, and his frustrations. Sometimes people don't need advice first, they need understanding first. That's the power of sympathy. Principle number 10. Appeal to the nobler motives. Arav didn't tell Vikram to work harder for fame or recognition. Instead, he reminded him that younger students looked up to him. He reminded him that his actions influenced others. People like to believe that they are acting for a meaningful reason. When we appeal to a person's higher values, we often inspire them more effectively. Principle number 11. Dramatize your ideas. Instead of simply saying we should work harder this year, Arav brought a photograph from last year's final. One picture brought back the emotions of the painful loss. It made the goal feel real. Facts inform people, but emotions move people. That's why dramatizing an idea can make it much more powerful. Principle number 12. Throw down a challenge. As they were leaving, Arav smiled and said, "Let's see who reaches practice first tomorrow morning." It was a simple challenge, but it awakened Vikram's competitive spirit. Many people are motivated when they are challenged. A challenge gives people something to prove, not to others, but to themselves. And that's exactly what happened with Vikram. These 4 principles teach us an important lesson. People are rarely inspired by pressure alone. They are inspired when they feel understood, when they find meaning in what they are doing, when they can emotionally connect with a goal, and when they are given a challenge worth pursuing. And with that, we've covered all 12 principles from how to win friends and influence people. If you think about this, all 3 stories taught us something important. Rahul and Raman showed us how to avoid unnecessary conflict. Meera showed us how to influence people without forcing our ideas on them. And Arav showed us how to inspire and lead others. At first glance, these principles seem simple, but that's exactly what makes them powerful. Most people know these ideas, but very few actually practice them. The next time you are in an argument, try understanding before reacting. The next time you want to convince someone, try listening before speaking. And the next time you want to lead someone, try inspiring them instead of pressuring them. Because people don't change when they feel defeated, they change when they feel understood. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to this channel for more content on communication, self-improvement, and personal growth. I'll see you on the next video.